Welcome to day 2 of the Spring 2025 Web Technologies course. I'm Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. First thing on the list, just kind of wanted to share as far as books are concerned. The bookstore went ahead and ordered online versions for our books, so I have codes for that. And I know there's some people that kind of preferred the hard copies. I hope that you'll be okay with the online versions of the books. In a way, they're better because you can search for things and that and there. Hope that's going to be all right with everyone. One thing, yeah, I wanted to mention. So there's actually you'll have to create an account with Vital Source. I'll go ahead and create a video on how you go ahead and get your book, or well, you basically use a voucher code, how to use your voucher code, and then I'll go through some basic functionality on what you can do there for highlighting and so forth, and just kind of how to use the reader in Visual Source. So, and then for the rest of the things we're going to be doing today, we're going to complete we're going to be starting out doing the written test for chapter 1, and then we'll do a lecture over chapter 2, and then I'll walk through all the different assignments we have. Okay. So let's go ahead. So first, for anybody who's online, if you want to bring up Inside Rankin, and we're going to go to our coursework page in Inside Rankin. And for anybody who hasn't used it, I know there's some new students in this course, and you'll be seeing this on the recording. So, come into your coursework, and then here's like the assignments that are due. But then obviously, if you go ahead and scroll down, you will see the different assignments that are due. Sometimes they could be potentially in some different boxes, but generally they're going to be grouped together. So here's the first 4, well, all of them. So this is what's due Sunday by midnight. This Sunday by midnight. So go ahead and click on the chapter 1 written test, and then click on start the written test. And then, so you guys there, guys that are online with me live, you guys at that point right here now? Okay. So first question is, basically what is a web browser, right? So if we look at our different options here, most of this is pretty basic. Here's some of these are some pretty basic questions, obviously. So obviously, a web browser is a program that runs on a client computer, right? Doesn't run on a web server; it runs on a client computer, right? So that would be the answer to the first one. And then the internet. What's the internet consist of? So from yesterday's lecture, we talked about that we have the wide area networks, right? And we have local area networks, right? And there's more than one wide area network. There's multiple area networks, right? And they're connected to the local area networks, right? So if we kind of look at our different options here, right? The best answer to this one is of many wide area networks that are connected to local area networks. The third one, an HTTP response is sent from. Right? So we have a request and we have a response. Right? The request comes from the client, And the response is sent back from what? From the web server to the client, right? So we talked yesterday a little bit, about the application servers. Also, there's application server, but basically, with the application server, the web server is going to actually kind of forward a request for certain information to the application server. Application server is going to return that back to the web server, and this isn't a case of a dynamic website. Going to send that back to the web server, and so it's the web server's responsibility to send that back to the client, right? This fourth one here. When a browser makes a request for a static web page, the web server is going to do what here? Okay. Let's look at our option. Returns HTML for the page from the browser. Renders. So who renders? It's not. We're wondering, what does a web server do? Who renders it? The browser renders, right? So let's look at our options there. And here, this one, the browser renders it, returns HTML page for the browser to render. That looks really good there. Renders the HTML. No, the web server doesn't that. Generates the HTML for the page, returns it to the browser. Well, it really doesn't generate. It doesn't generate the web page. No, web server doesn't. That's usually done like we were talking about yesterday. The application server with some dynamic content may, regenerate that HTML page, send that to the web server. So that's the web server's responsibility, just to send and receive thing. All right. So the best answer here for this one would be the very first one. Returns HTML for the page, and the browser renders it. Number 5 here. When a browser makes a request for a dynamic page, let's look at our options here on this. The web server processes the request and returns the HTML to the browser. No. This is where a dynamic, so the application server is going to be involved here, right? So we've kind of got two that mention the application server. An application server processes the request and returns the HTML to the web server, right? Or the last one was the application server processes the request and returns the HTML to the browser. And obviously, what we were just talking about, the application server is going to pass it back to the web server. It's the web server's responsibility to send that back to the client, right? So we're going to go ahead and choose this one here. Okay, number 6. When a client requests a dynamic web page, the HTML is generated by. So we talk back to that dynamic, right? So who generates that? It's basically the application server generates that, right? Like we were already talking about. And then passes it back to the web server. Number 7, when you include JavaScript in a web application, your code is run by the JavaScript engine in the browser, the JavaScript engine in the web server, the JavaScript engine on the application server, or the application server. So as we talked about, JavaScript is, for the most part, like I said, yesterday, JavaScript has always been a client side, and that's what it's really still used for most. It's for client side technology, but in recent times, there's been some frameworks like, more specifically Node.js, which you can actually run JavaScript on a server. But for the most part, JavaScript's a client-side technology, and it's run the JavaScript engine in the web browser would be the correct answer here. Number 8, HTML is used to define the structure and content of the web page, the formatting of a web page, the layout of a web page, all of the above. So, as we talked about yesterday, if you recall, we talked about the difference between, CSS and HTML. CSS is for formatting, right? So, even if you're a little confused about the answer to this, that CSS is for formatting. So obviously it's not going to be this one. the second one, and obviously can't be all of the above because that wouldn't include that. And the layout of the web page, that could be a little confusing for you, but no, the CSS actually handles the layout as well. But HTML is for structure and content. Always remember, HTML is for structure and content. CSS is for formatting and layout. So the first one would be the correct answer on that. CSS is used, right, to define the format of the HTML elements. No. Define the browser settings. No. Format the HTML elements on a web page. Format the browser settings. So, throw both the browser setting ones out because we know it doesn't have anything to do with that. So it defines a format. No, it doesn't define it. It's this one here. Format the HTML elements of a web page. To format a web page, you use, it's kind of redundant here, questions. You use CSS, right? To deploy a website, you use, obviously not HTML, CSS. HTTP stands for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, right? FTP is File Transfer Protocol. So the best answer to this is FTP. Just to kind of do a quick review, FTP was more of a, it's kind of a little bit of an archaic type technology for deploying web pages. There's lots of better ways to do that nowadays. We'll discuss that more in the future in this course, but you can obviously still use FTP, and it's for transferring files, and basically you'd be transferring files from most likely your local computer up to a web server, right? When you deploy a website, you upload its folder and files from, from your computer or network to a web server on the internet. And you got to always watch these questions. Well, because you can see if you're doing things really quick, your computer or network on the web server, it's an intranet on your intranet. And to tell you the truth, this isn't necessarily wrong. If you have some local type, if you have a web server just in your little intranet, you actually would do that. So that's really, this question probably said when you want to deploy a website, a public website, right? Or, based on the internet, right? So in that case, this is the best answer for that. Okay, which of the following is not part of the HTTP URL? So you have the first part's a protocol, right? And you remember then there's a path. Usually you've got a file, like a directory, then a file name. Node is not part of that HTTP URL. Okay. So to load a web page from the internet into the web browser, you can type the file name of the web page in your browsers, not the file name. Type the domain name. That's just the www. Let's say to load a web page, a specific web page. Type the URL. Yeah. The domain name, the web browser, click the browser's back button. So the best answer here is obviously to type the URL into the address bar. To load a web page from an intranet into your web browser, you can. I don't really like this question, to be honest with you. I just look at the intranet being like your computer and stuff like that. And I don't know from the context that they really made this question, right? And like I mentioned yesterday during the lecture, to open up a web page from a local, when I talk just like your local computer, in the like Chrome and the different, I don't know if it's the case for all web browsers, but there used to be like a file open, they had use the open of our open file command in the file menu. They used to all have file menus. They've kind of gotten rid of that, and really actually to open up the web page that's on a local, you use the Control key O, and that would open up basically an Explorer window, and you'd select the file. Okay, but for this question, the correct answer would be use open or open file command in the file menu. All right, 16. If you right click on a web page and select view source or view page source, okay, what will be displayed? Okay. So the best answer here is that's how you view the HTML, right? It's not going to be a link. It's not going to be necessarily the CSS. It'll be the HTML is what you'll view. So basically, and you know, we're going to end up actually going through this more in the future. Kind of showed you two different ways to actually view the source. The one was right click and view source, and the other one is using the developer tools that are also available within, you know, from the lecture perspective. For what we were using the Chrome browser, obviously, and there's other browsers that also have developer tools as well, like, you know, Microsoft Edge and etc. But so we were using the developer tools in Chrome. So because 57% or more of all internet traffic comes from mobile devices, a web developer needs to be concerned with what? Okay. So search engine optimization, has really nothing to do with if it would be mobile or web. It's basically the same thing. It's basically you're putting things in your code to make sure that, you know, it can rank higher from a browser's perspective, from like Chrome for search engines, right? Cross browser compatibility. No, that wouldn't be the correct answer either. You know, in a way, could be a little bit of an answer. You know, I could see a little bit, but I wouldn't say that's the best answer, because obviously phones use different browsers. You know, there may be a little bit, but for the most part, the browser compatibility issue, like we talked about yesterday, isn't as important as it once was. Okay, user accessibility. No, the biggest thing is with the context of this question, it would be responsive web design. So that when you create your page, that it works and it's readable and usable and on any kind of client. Number 18 here, let's see, today the issue with cross compatibility has almost disappeared would be the correct answer on that. Okay. Which of the following is not a guideline for web accessibility? Let's see. Provide text that is easy to read. Make sure all links can be accessed with the keyboard. It's not a guideline. Make sure each page runs in all browsers. So web accessibility is, just being able to access it. You know, making sure that each page will run in each browser. That's the whole idea about the cross-browser, right? Not accessibility, right? These other ones are all accessibility. Provide text that's easy to read. Make sure links can be accessed with a keyboard. Make sure that any essential information and images is also provided in text. And we'll talk about that later, actually today. That's the alt key. There's an alt attribute for images. Okay, so the answer to this is not part of accessibility. All right, and then because applications like Google and Bing rank the pages of a website, a web developer needs to be concerned with. So we're talking about ranking, right? So when we're talking about ranking, we're talking about what? Search engine optimization. Not about usability, not responsive or cross-browser. So, okay. So let's go ahead and submit this written test. should be getting 100 on this, but let's see what we got. Turn in your written test. There we go. So there you go. That'll help your grade. Get off to a good start with your grade. If you did the questionnaire, you got 20 points there. If you did the written test, you follow this, you'll have so you should have 100% grade when you're done with this. Okay, so let's see, what are we going to do? So we're going to go ahead and get into the Chapter 2 lecture. So here, well, we're gonna get into the Visual Source Code a little bit. We're gonna test the HTML document. I'll show you how to test it. We're gonna use this validation service as well. Let's see, as far as now, we're going to describe the use of the head and body elements, describe the types of HTML tags, which are either opening, closing, or empty. Describe the use of attributes within HTML tags. Describe the use of HTML comments and white space. The components of CSS style rule. Describe the use of these types of CSS selectors, type ID, and class. And we're going to describe 2 ways to run a web page and 1 way to retest a page after you've changed it. Okay. So we're going to be covering, we're not going to go through every single one of these slides. We're going to go through quite a few of them, but not all of them. And as we're going to go through some of the basic fundamentals here as I kind of review the assignments that we're going to be doing this week, which is the homework. We already did the first written test. Would be the homework for Chapter 2 and the lab for Chapter 2. So here's the basic structure of an HTML document. Okay. Doc type declaration is the very first line. And by designating like this, you're telling the browser, hey, this is an HTML5 document. And I think I mentioned yesterday, you kind of would think it has like number 5 in there or something. It does not. But what it does do, if you don't include that, what the browser will do with like Chrome will do, it's going to actually run it in a different mode. It's going to run it in what's called Quartz mode, and it can kind of cause some problems for some of the functionality that you might have in that document. If it's all HTML5 document, you could get some different results, right? So you want to make sure that you tell the browser, you're saying, hey, I'm running this in, this is an HTML5 document, and this is how you define that. Okay. And then the main tag, really the beginning tag of any HTML document, because really actually the document type is really not a HTML tag. It's a definition. This is the basic document tree. This is your document, starting with an HTML, ending. So many tags, most of the tags have a beginning and ending tag. And so you're always going to do a / in the name of the beginning tag, right? So that's the only difference. So you've got the HTML, and then you have a head tag, and this is head element. And we have here the body tag. So this is the body of your document, okay? Let me bring up something here we can go into a little bit more just to kind of review. I think I might wait on this. We're going to kind of go through this a little bit more, but let's wait until we do this in Visual Studio. Sorry about that. So here's a simple HTML document. Okay. And maybe I will go back to that because it does have this example pretty close to what I expect to have here. So here's basically, a simple HTML document. You have your document declaration. You have your basic, your HTML tag, and you have this language attribute, and you're saying this is English. Okay. And so that's used for accessibility reasons. That's used by screen readers. Okay. So let me go back. Sorry for the confusion on that. Let me go back to this. So let's break down each line. So the document type, like we said, this is the type declaration, tells the browser which version. That's the current standard. It's not an HTML tag itself, but an instruction to the browser to ensure that the browser renders the page in standards mode. Okay? And like I said, following the web standards rather than using Quirks mode for older non-standard HTML. So you could actually get a little different results by, most of the stuff we're going to do, probably not, but you have a more advanced page, you could see some differences. Okay. So, and then here's your language being EN, which is for English. This is the root element of the HTML page. We know that all other elements are descendants of this tag. HTML, this tag marks the beginning of the HTML document. Language, English, this is an attribute within the HTML tag. The lang attribute specifies the language of the content within the HTML document. EN indicates English. This is important for accessibility, screen readers, and search engines. I didn't mention search engines as well. Okay, so search engines, when they rank, it's part of their ranking is going to be what language that's in and everything else, right? So that people who are searching in one language are not going to be returning, something that's all written in English, right? The head section, this element contains metadata. Metadata is just kind of, it's data that kind of defines data. It's data about data. So this element contains metadata about HTML documents such as the title, the character set, and links to style sheets and scripts. And we're talking about our cascading style sheets and scripts. We're talking about JavaScript, right? Different JavaScripts. So, sometimes you're going to have multiple style sheets. It might not be just one. So you might be, you might be including multiple style sheets. You might be including multiple JavaScripts as well. Okay. JavaScript files. The content within the head is not displayed directly on the web page itself, but provides information for the browser and other systems. So yeah, that's one of the important things to really realize here is that everything in that head section really doesn't show on the web page itself, on the content of the web page. The one thing that you will notice though is when how you have a tab and the tab has a little title. So when you set the title attribute within a head, or the title tag, I should say, within the head, that's where the title tag goes. When you set that, it's going to show it where the tab is, and we'll take a look at that. So this is here's this within the head. You have a meta character set, UTF-8. Okay. This is the meta tag that specifies the character encoding for the HTML document. Okay. It's just saying the meta tag, this tells you that this is metadata about the HTML document. So character set UTF, this attribute specifies the character encoding as UTF-8. Okay. And this is the Unicode transformation format 8-bit. So UTF-8 is widely used as character encoding that can represent almost all characters from all languages. Okay, and to ensure proper display of text regardless of the language. So like if you do have that set to something different, it could, there's like what's called ASCII, which is the American Standards character information. What is it? I almost forgot it. But that's like a smaller set of just English. It doesn't have other languages as well. And it doesn't include special characters. So, there are different character sets that could potentially be used if there's some reason that you'd want to do that. But for out of default, probably the best one to use is the UTF-8. Okay. And then we didn't see this in our line. When we create when we create a default document in Visual Studio, you'll see that it also includes this viewport. Okay. And this has to do with the responsive web. Okay. We talk about the responsive so that it looks, it's all about being able to use different devices, different clients. Okay. And that has to do with this viewport, okay? This is another important meta tag, especially for responsive web design, okay? Just this name viewport, this specifies the viewport settings, which control how the web page is displayed on different devices, okay? And, we're going to learn a lot more of this as the course goes on, okay? This is just a brief little general introduction. We'll learn a lot more how to use this in the future, okay? Content width, device width, initial scale. This attribute sets the viewport properties, okay? With device width, it sets the width of the viewport to the width of the device screen. This ensures the web page scales properly on different screen sizes. And initial scale, 1.0, this sets the initial zoom level when the page is first loaded to 1.0, meaning no zoom. And then the next one here is this is still within the head part of within the document. The head section has a title tag, right? And so here by default, when you do Visual Studio Code, it's going to put in this by default. And then obviously you're going to change this to whatever page you're creating, as your title, right? Let's see, document, this is the actual title. You should replace the document, yeah. In summary, the snippet, okay, so what was I also put some other notes down here. Yeah, if you don't include the character set in your HTML document, you risk having the web page display incorrectly, especially if it contains characters outside the basic ASCII character set, which includes standard English letters, numbers, and common symbols. Okay, we don't need to go into all that, but don't let this get too confusing for you. The important thing is really, for now, you'll learn more about being able to use some of those, especially those meta tags and stuff as we go forward here. But this is just a simple basic document here where you have your declaration. We have an HTML tag that must be ended by an HTML tag. The head section's always right at the beginning here, okay? You don't have your head section after your body section. That's incorrectly formatted. You have to have it after before your body section, and then body always is going to have to be after the head. Well, there's some other ones as well. Some other tags that we could put in some different places, and we'll talk about that in the future. So we've got two elements with opening and closing tags. So most of the HTML elements have opening and closing tags. So this first one is H1, which is a heading. And so there's 6 different headings. There's H1 through H6. H1 is the biggest, okay? You just have to make sure whenever, since it has opening and closing tags, all of the ones that do have, you always have to make sure you end the tag and make sure it's the right one. Sometimes, it's easy. Sometimes you might change. You got heading 1, so I want to change this to heading 2, right? So once you change that to heading 2, you need to make sure you change your ending tag to H2 as well, right? Here's a list of links. This is just a paragraph tag, okay? We'll talk about that more in the future. Yeah, just to put text in, right? Here's 2 empty tags. There's not a lot of different empty tags, but here's 2 of them. BR is for a break, a line break. So when you're, for us that remember when we were doing the C# stuff, for the people who took C# last semester, we used the /9 n for a new line character and stuff like that. But to create a new line in HTML, you use the BR tag for new line. Okay. There are other ways to do some new line characters within HTML we'll look at as well. But that's a new that creates a new line. And then also the image is called an empty tag. So let's actually really quick here. Let's go look at. Let's see. Do I still have the course thing up? Let's see on the main page here if this is still going to be running for me. Good. There's some handouts here on the right hand side. So if you basically click this handout, number one is the HTML one. Some different ones. So these first two are the ones we'd be most concerned with here early in the course. So here's a handout for HTML. This one is just some different basic tags, right? And just a description of what the tag is, okay? And you'll see for doc type, this is it doesn't apply to a doc type. It's really not an empty tag or other, really. It's because it's really not part of the document itself. But down here, you're going to see some checks. Or here's some empty tags. The meta one is an empty tag, the link tag. And also we go down here farther. We're going to see some images also. One, it doesn't include the break. This doesn't include some tags. I don't know why they've been omitted on this, but the break one we were just looking at, that's also an empty tag. But that's probably there's not a lot of them. I'll actually get a list of all the ones. I don't remember every single one. There's not a lot actually, but them are the empty tags, right? You don't have to close them. And usually it's because you're not including that stuff around there. Usually like this other stuff, when you use a title tag, you're putting a title, you're putting some text in there, right? Same thing like with these other tags as well. We're going to go through these div tag and usually your surrounding text, some kind of text, some kind of content, right? But that's something to look at and be helpful for you. Did want to also go through real quick here, since we're in this area. So this here, this is MDN, which is Mozilla Developer Network. And if we just kind of click, let's go down to the bottom here, About. So let's go down to About. MDN is an open source collaborative project owned by Mozilla Corporation, developed by Mozilla, in partnership with global community volunteers and partners. So basically, this is just a whole community and group. So Mozilla actually provides the documentation for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's not. There really isn't an official HTML. There's organizations that take care of creating the standards and stuff. But as far as like creating all the documentation, this is kind of the de facto standard body for the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we go up here to references. We can go to HTML. And this is a guide on all the different tags. So this, I would say, if you wanted to make sure that, hey, I'm following something correctly, this is really the correct references, the reference for all of that, okay? Here's all the HTML elements listed, all the different tags. It's going to go into specifics, right? How to use them, right? And you can even try different things as well, okay? You can make changes, reset, and try things out, okay? So this is one option. Another one is the W3 No, not the W3. Let's go here. And I think, you know, a lot of you have already seen this before, the W3 schools. So here you've got all the different tags, right? And so you can go through these as well. It'll be helpful. You can try it yourself. Base elements. So here's the different elements. Tells you, you know, it'll go into some definitions of the different tags as well. Is a root element, right? It has a start tag. So yeah, you can go through some of this. But some of this on W3 schools, you know, some of it may be a little bit outdated or something, or I'm sure there's some errors here and there. I would say, you know, officially, like I was kind of saying, the MDN, which probably would be really your official documentation, probably your best source, you know. But, you know, W3 school is just kind of easy to use and stuff like that. It's just kind of a easy interface, I guess, as well. But whatever you prefer to use, I'd kind of use them both, to tell you the truth, and get familiar with them. You know, and also, like I said, besides just HTML, you also have JavaScript, JavaScript and CSS, you know, and other stuff as well, right? So, okay, let's get back to our presentation here. Correct nesting, okay. So this here is just showing, this is a paragraph tag. This is I for italicized, right? So to correctly nest, you need to make sure that you end a tag. You have to end a tag. If you have a tag, like an inner tag like this, you have to end this before the, you know, the inner ones have to be ended before the outer tag, right? So in this case, you've got your P tag being your outer tag. You have your I, your italicized being your inner tag. You need to make sure that you close that out. What did I? Okay. How to code opening tag. Yeah. So this is just showing you that this is an opening tag with 3 attributes. Yeah. So the attributes here, I do want to point this out. You know, these, you can't make these up yourself. These are not user, you know, defined. These are standards defined, right? So you have an href tag. So this is basically a link tag, right? This is a link, and then here's your href is the path to it, right? So there's 2 different kinds of paths: is absolute and relative. So an absolute path, let's just say for an internet, let's just say a page that's on the internet, and you put the whole path all the way here, right? Or if it was even local and you put your whole path, you know, starting, say, if most people have a C drive, some people could obviously have different drives, but, you know, let's just say it's a C drive and you have the C drive, you know, colon, and your whole path, that's called the absolute path, right? You know, which reason you probably don't ever really want to do that, especially if you're trying to connect things, you know, within a relative file structure, is because if, you know, somebody else is using that and they don't have that complete path, because you could have some of your folders down very far within a tree, right? And if, you know, you end up using the absolute path, if somebody else's path isn't the same on their computer, then it's not going to work, right? So usually it's always best to have your path being relative to the directory structure where you're at, right? To that directory where that file is in. And we'll look at that to make sure that, you know, you have that, understand how that works. How to code an empty tag with attributes. Yeah. So this, you know, this is one of the empty tags, right? Image is an empty tag. You have a source, right? And so this is kind of a different one, whereas here, we were looking at href tag. Href tag is for the link, really. This is the location of where this is, right? The href tag, the location and document. Whereas here for this, it's kind of different for image. It's a source tag, and this is basically the location and name of the image file. Okay. And here for image, you have an alt tag, and the purpose of the alt tag is, I do that a lot, don't I? The purpose of an alt tag is so that, especially it's really important for screen readers, so that if someone can't see the image, someone's visually impaired, they can't see the image, that a screen reader will actually read it and say, okay, this is Murock's logo, right? So then when you're walking down a page and trying, someone who's visually impaired trying to, basically read the page through using a screen reader, it will read Murock logo, right? How to use a Boolean value. Yeah. So we have some, we'll learn these different tags. Obviously, this is an input tag. It's like a check. This is a checkbox on the screen, right? And so checkbox can be, you can dynamically, we'll learn how to dynamically do it, or it could be checked by default. Most of the time, they're not, wouldn't be, but, it's possible. But sometimes you have some logic where you're going to automatically check things and stuff like that. And we'll learn how to do that with JavaScript later. But this is a Boolean value saying checked. So if you actually have this and have checked here, it will have it checked. All right. If you don't have checked at all, it's just going to be open. It'll be a box and not checked. Right. Let's see, attributes for defining an opening tag for an ID attribute. Yes. So the ID tag is used just kind of defining it, giving a definition, and you can actually and you'll be able to access an ID tag. We'll learn how to use ID tags for certain purposes for both cascading style sheets and JavaScript. Okay, it's just a way of kind of giving something an ID, right? Giving it a name, right? Something have name too, so I don't want to confuse that name attribute and an ID attribute. ID is just a way to give something something where you can identify it, right? And an opening tag with class attributes. Okay, so this here, yeah, class is another one, another way to define things. And you use class. This class, you're going to use this a lot for cascading style sheet purposes. Okay. And like I said, the ID itself is I don't say required. It's not required, but this is you can't make up your own type of attributes, right? So this is a specific attribute for a specific reason, right? Same thing with class. Same thing with title, right? And same with href, these attributes, right? Comments. So for HTML, I know some of you were in the previous course for C# and you create comments a different way, right? So, but for HTML, this is how you create a comment. You have an opening bracket, an exclamation point, 2 dashes, right? And then anything within that block, this can run multiple lines, right? As we'll see down here. But you always have to end it with a dash and end bracket, right? Let's see here. And white space. Okay, just showing an example here. And one thing I do kind of want to mention about white space here is, you can have a lot of white space in your document. Let me just kind of change this for fun here. You could have it doesn't matter. It's going to ignore that, right? It's still going to work. And I'll show you some example. I'll show an example of how that's still working, but just because white space is ignored in many circumstances. Okay. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about cascading style sheets. Okay. And so there's kind of different ways to apply a style to something in HTML. One is by using a selector, um, and we'll also learn how to do it by ID, and we'll learn how to do it by class. Okay, and so from a selector standpoint, a selector is basically one of the HTML elements, right? So here you got an H1 tag, which is the heading one tag, which is the largest heading. But you know, could be any tag within HTML. You know, it could be a p tag, a div tag, okay, etc. And this is just setting the color of an H1 tag to navy, which is navy blue, right? And then here, you know, yeah, well, it's important, you know, here's the declaration. You have open and close curly braces, right? And always have a semicolon after each one. You can have multiple lines here, right? But that's just the first one there. That's one just with one. I don't know why this looks like that got kind of moved around a little bit, didn't it? But that's okay. This is a simple CSS box with comments. Okay. So here you can tell you've got body H1, H2, heading. So that's heading one, right? That's the largest one. That's the next largest one is an H2, right? And then this is called an unordered list. We'll learn all these tags, unordered list, and so these are all selectors, right? These are all HTML tags right there. Elements that can be selected by type, ID, or class. So type is those selectors. Type would be H1 tag, right? But then also you can use a class. And so base color here, that's going to refer to the CSS. Obviously, you're going to be bringing your CSS into your file up in the head section, right? And up in the head section of your document, you'll be bringing your CSS in. And then if this matches base color, if that's in that document, then it's going to apply that style to this element, right? To this element. And then an ID, the same, so it depends on how you define. Yeah, there's a certain way to define a cascading style sheet for a class and a certain way to do it for an ID, and we're going to take a look at that. Okay. All right. So here we've got, so this one here, these are our selectors. These are HTML elements, right? A body, an H1 tag. And then the ID, here's one for ID. So when you're defining a cascading style sheet for an ID, you're always going to use the hash or the pound sign, you know, the pound or the hash here. And then for a class, it's always going to be a dot. Dot for class, pound for ID. Okay? So if you did it the wrong way here, like we had this, let's say you had dot copyright, that would not work, right? This just wouldn't apply a style because for an ID, it has to have a dot. For a class, it has to, for an ID, it has to have a hash or a pound sign. For a class, it has to have a dot, right? So if you don't have it correct here, then it's not going to apply the style. So this is just an example. It's showing you that, I guess, the HTML here, the style. And here's the elements in the browser that it applied to this HTML. All right, so let's see here. I think we're just going to go through Yeah, let's go through, I do want to go through this part. So here, some common HTML, CSS errors. So for HTML, an opening tag without a closing tag, a misspelled tag or attribute names, right? So those tags and those attribute names are not, you know, developer created. You have to use the correct, you have to use the correct tags, the correct spelling of those. Quotation marks that aren't paired, make sure you have a beginning a quotation mark, you have an end quotation mark. Incorrect file references and link. Oh yeah, yeah, because like we were looking at the one where you got an image and the image has that source attribute, so you can't have an a for an a tag, which is a link tag, a link on the page. So for an a tag, it has a href, but for a link for a image, it has that sr source tag, src tag. So you need to make sure you're using the right attribute. Common CSS error, braces aren't paired correctly. Okay, curly braces, missing semicolon. So you always want to have a semicolon at the end of every line you have, every style that you defined. Misspelled property names. Okay, ID or class names that don't match the names in the HTML. Okay. Let's see. All this other stuff we're just going to kind of go through. Yeah, we're going to just go through this. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and do a 10-minute break. It's almost 10 o'clock, a little bit more than a 10-minute break. So let's just go ahead and come back at 10:10, and we're going to go ahead and start going through the exercises. Or, the assignment, so to speak. Okay, just also wanted to just go through some of the basics here. I know people who have already, students who took C#, probably familiar with the repository, the GitHub repository and everything. But so I just wanted to make sure, if you have any problems, so if anybody's having any problems getting the repository set up, getting the environment set up, please let me know. So if you follow the directions, you should have your own repository, similar to like here, right? Where you got all these different directory structures, right? All this different directory structure. Just to go through a couple things here. Also, there is some handouts here. These are the same handouts that were within the main page, on the main page in Rankin. Also, just kind of want to mention that because I know that that's been confusing for a couple students before, but there's all these temp.txt. The reason that these are in all these directories is just because GitHub won't allow you just to create empty folders. You have to have some content in there. And for us to set this up for the course, we had to have some kind of a file. So we have this temp.txt in each one of these. Okay. I don't think I didn't even put anything in any of them. But they're just placeholders, just so that I could actually check in those folders. Okay, so that's the only purpose of those temp.txt. So you just can kind of ignore that. So obviously this would be your repository, and then also you would have it cloned, right? If you follow directions, you'll have it cloned, and so you should have it cloned on your computer, right? And so here's my cloned version, right? And so what we can do here, so let's go look at this exercise a little bit. Let me start out with this exercise and what it tells you to do here. So we're going to go over this homework one first. Let's get rid of this. Sorry, moving stuff around here a little bit. All right. So here it's telling you inside your Git repository, right? Use the folder name HTML chapter 2 homework. Okay. So what you kind of, some different ways you can do this, and I'll show you one way. And hopefully things are set up pretty similar on your computers as mine. I have Windows 11. I don't know if you guys are also using Windows 11. You know, some people might even be using Mac. Obviously, Windows is kind of the preferred ones for this program and stuff. But so here you got this Git repository for HTML Chapter 2 homework. So if we go here, homework, Chapter 2, this better work. So right click and then go show more options, right? And then you can actually sit there and open this with code. And this is the Visual Source Code, right? This is the editor that we downloaded as part of the environment instructions. So you click on that, and now it will open that, right, like that, right? And that's going to be that directory right there. So and if you're ever in here and you're like kind of confused about where you're at or something, you know, as far as directory structure wise, you can always right click on here, right? And then go, what's this? Oh yeah, reveal in File Explorer. Click on that, and it'll show you exactly where it is, right? So the important thing is you just really want to make sure that, you know, especially for checking in code, that you're using this directory structure, because this would be the same one that's going to be in GitHub Desktop, right? The GitHub Desktop, and that way you can commit your code, right? So let me close that. So let's go back to the instructions here real quick. So here it's telling you basically to create 3 different HTML pages: index, about, contact, right? Maybe I'll do this. Okay, so then in here, different ways for Visual Studio Code, and I'll teach you some other things, and I'll do some videos on some functionality within Visual Studio Code to help you out as well. But in here, so a couple different ways to create a file in here. You can right click in here and click new file, or, you know, if you need to create a new folder for some reason, new file or new folder. The other way, you can just click on new file, like right here, and do like index.html, right? Now you got a file, you know, you got that file, and you can do this for the other ones as well, right? We got an about.html. And then what's the other one here? Contact. So we have contact.html. So now you've got these 3 different ones, right? Now if you go here, the index, here's kind of a shortcut you'll learn. Let's see if I make this smaller. Okay, that's all right. So a shortcut here to basically create a default template, a default HTML document, is, you want to do an exclamation point. So your shift key, exclamation point, right? And this is called the Emmet abbreviation. And there's a lot of functionality around that. And I'll create a separate video on some of this stuff. Just, you know, because there's a lot of shortcuts to make things a lot easier. So this is going to create a base HTML document. So you want to make sure after you have your cursor still right there, you hit the enter key. If you do something like just tab over or space over, you're going to lose that, right? So you need to make sure you shift key and do the exclamation point, and then you want to hit the enter key. And this will create this base document here, okay? So it's a good way to get started, right? And you can do that for each one of your documents, right? For each one of your pages. And then, like, the important thing, this is the index. You know, I don't know what we're calling the index here, but, you know, your index is usually your home page. I don't know. But whatever. Now, a couple other things here. Kind of wanted to review a little bit. If you put something in the wrong place. So we're going to do that. We'll put that down. Let's just put that within the body tag. So one of our, we loaded those different extensions, right? So there's an extension that's telling you that, hey, you can't do this, right? If you ever, sometimes some of these extensions can kind of be a pain because they kind of like, you're trying to do things and they're popping up and stuff. And, there's a lot of value in them, but sometimes they're kind of a pain in the rear as well. So if you ever kind of want to, you can turn them off, right? So this one here is from HTML Validate. So it's enabled right now. So right now I disable, I'm going to restart the extension. Okay. So if I go back here, our page, now you can see the good thing is, I guess, well, that one's that, but this won't show all the little error, if you got errors in here. So probably in the most cases, you kind of really want to keep it enabled, right? But I was just showing that, there's options to turn them off. Sometimes there's some things that they kind of get on your nerves, but it won't show you that this is an incorrect format, right? And then also, so this being incorrect format, you kind of wonder, well, what's going to happen here? You try to, view this in the browser. And so here we're going to go ahead and look at a different, use a different extension, and that's the live server extension. It was part of the environment setup. If you right click and click open with live server, okay, I think there's two different ways to do that. You can either right click and do open with live server, or there's also this go live down at the bottom of the screen here. There's go live that'll run in live server, or you can right click and do open with live server. Either way. Okay. And then this will open up this page, and then we don't have anything in here yet, but you do see at the document it says homepage, so that's the title of it, right? But as you can see, it didn't complain or anything, right? It worked. It kind of worked, right? So here, let's just go and add a little something. And here's another kind of a shortcut. You can just use like an H. You can do H1, right? And then hit Enter key, and it'll put everything. It'll take care of everything else. It'll put in the brackets for you, the end tag, and everything else. Okay. And there's a reason I'm just wanting to make a point here. And then you can click that again, but it will actually, by default, it will update it by itself. You don't have to run it again. You don't have to refresh the page. It's always, so actually put it in here. So, from this perspective, it looks like it's right, because basically the browser, what it will do, even if you, this is something that's a little different, especially for people who are C#. If you didn't write the code the right way, it won't build, things won't run, you'll have problems, right? Well, a lot of this stuff in, JavaScript, HTML and that, it'll still display, right? Even if you have things incorrect, it'll display. But it's not going to display correctly, and it may not display correctly, and you may not get the results you expect to get, right? So you want to make sure that you do. Make sure that you have everything structured correctly. So I'm going to go back here and re-enable this extension. Okay, and we'll go back here to this page. So obviously we want to take our head section and put this back where it should be. And that's within that part of the thing. And here it's just telling you what is trailing white space. Yeah, it's just letting you know. You shouldn't have white spaces there, I guess. I think it's kind of silly, but it's okay. And then also sometimes, if you get your tags messed up, sometimes, you might have your tags messed up. You can right click and then do format document, and that'll fix it. To a certain extent, it might not fix everything, but it'll, for the most part, it'll go ahead and fix your tags. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So just kind of want to go over that real quick. So that was kind of a way. And for over here on the right, for the extensions, you go down here to this extensions one to see your extensions. I have probably some extra ones that you don't have. I suggest, I know there's a lot of different extensions. I wouldn't, just grab anything. I don't know. I'm kind of picky about that. I only really grab things that, have are either part of like Microsoft's library or very well known and, kind of, I feel comfortable using, as opposed to some just piddly ones that are here and there. Right. But, so right here, that's how you get to extensions, clicking on that. And then if you want to go back to your Explorer window, you click on that. So now that we did this, I probably should have showed you this before we started this, but I'm bringing up, this is desktop, GitHub desktop. It has these files in here now. Okay. And just for fun, let's just do this right now. Let's just go ahead and commit this. Initial commit. We can call it whatever. Initial commit, and then what we're going to do here. So here, let's go back to our GitHub on our. Sorry, got some things a little messed up here. Let me go back to there's my repository. So obviously my repository, this was initial commit. I probably shouldn't call that initial commit. Maybe I'll change that right now. This is the initial commit was when I created this in the first place. But obviously nothing has changed here yet until you commit something. All right, so let's go back to GitHub Desktop, and let's just say chapter 02 commit, and then if I go ahead and commit domain, that's going to click commit domain, and then even after you've done that, it's still not going to be reflected here. What you need to do is make sure you push to origin. Okay. Now, if none of this is working for you, if things aren't set up, especially the first time students here, please let me know. I'll work with you. It's very important for you to get things set up so you can submit your assignments. But now we'll go ahead and push to origin here. All right. And so that was successful. We come in here, and it probably might take a refresh. As you can see, here's chapter 2 commit. So now this is committed, and this is how you're going to commit all your different assignments. And so what I'll be able to do is come in here, and I'll be able to verify that you've got your homework submitted, and then I can go ahead and grade it. Right. And what I will actually end up doing is I'll end up coming in here. And, make sure you put in the right directory. It's important put things in the right directory. So that was a homework assignment under HTML. And here, and then what I will do is after I grade your homework, I will upload a file that's with the grade and what points I might have taken off and what your score is. Okay. And that would, that will be after the due date, right? After it's due, I will, as soon as I can after that. Might be a day or two, sometimes even longer, depends on what's going on. But within a day, 2, maybe 3 days at the most. Most of the time won't be 3 days, but I'll go ahead and I'll fix that. I'll grade it and I'll go ahead and upload it. So please, if you're having any problems getting your assignments, submit it. Please let me know, and I'll work with you and get that taken care of. So let's go ahead. We don't need to look at that anymore. Let's go back to our assignment here. So in that case, we went ahead and created an index, about, and contact, and I showed you how you can use the exclamation point to create that default document, and then from there you can go ahead and edit that. Right. So each page should have 3 links. Right. So what do we use for links? Included a link. We use the A tag. Right. Maybe I can bring that up again. So let me go back to handouts, and let's take a look at this. So here's the different tags, right? So, this is a good thing you can probably use for the most part for some of these assignments. A clickable link to another page, right? So we're using a tag for that. On an image, so for an image, we use the IMG tag, the image tag of one of your hobbies. Okay. Now you can go ahead and use that little handout will help. Also, going out here to W3 schools, right? You want to do an image, right? I don't even know if this is going to work for me. Finding, it's probably going to be just under the tags. Images. So here's an example. All right. So you can use this as an example. Also, you do the same thing with the documentation. This might be just a little simpler, overall to navigate, so to speak. So there's like an image, right? That's what you do. Here's for links, right? There's your href link, your A tag. Let's see here, an image, a heading tag. So we know our headings. We got H1 through H6, right? So it's not telling you any specific one. A heading tag. Here's saying a paragraph tag, right? A paragraph describing your hobby. That's going to be the P tag, right? And so a P tag actually, I think I had a note here that's kind of helpful for me here. I know. Well, I just speak off the top of my head. So a paragraph tag is a semantic tag. A paragraph tag is a semantic tag, and so it has a special meaning. It's a paragraph. It's meant to be a paragraph in a thing, because there's other tags you could also. Another probably the most popular tag is the div tag, but the div tag isn't really for creating a paragraph of text. But not that people don't do that sometimes. A div tag is usually a tag that's used just to group some things together. It's a general tag used to group some stuff together. And a lot of times it's because you want to apply some style to that specific group of text, or you're wanting to do some other certain functionality, hiding it maybe. That's another thing. And when we start doing some JavaScript, you can learn how you can. We'll use like accordions. We can expand things and minimize things, and you can do a lot of different things, especially with JavaScript when you have divs and stuff like that. But div's not a semantic tag. It doesn't have a specific meaning. It's kind of just a general tag. Whereas a P tag is a paragraph tag, and it's really best for when you're writing a paragraph of text. Okay. Let's see on the about page. Okay, so that was the index page. That's what you're going to want to do there. So you're doing an image of one of your hobbies. So yeah, you're just gonna go out the internet, find an image, download it, or something you have locally, whatever. Just put it in the your drop that image in your folder. Drop that in your folder there, where your assignment is, and then you'll have your image right there. It's usually best to create an image folder and have your images separated out, but not worried about that right now, this very first assignment. But you can do it that way as well, and then have it there. You have to just make sure if you have it just within your, if you have it just there within that same directory of your page, then you can just say the name of the image and it'll show. But if you put it in an image directory, you're gonna have to make sure the path is right. Okay, in the about page, a heading describing about me. So a heading tag was an H1 tag, H1 through H6, so whatever size you want. An ordered list of your friends, so ordered list. So we can go look at an ordered list. Here's an ordered list. Here's an unordered list. So an unordered list is just going to list them like this, right? Coffee, tea, milk. Let's take a quick look, just like that, right? That's an unordered list. And then an ordered list is going to be like this. Okay, and we're going to take a look at that one. 1, 2, 3. It's going to put the numbers in there, right? Okay. Other list. Okay, yeah. Okay. Here, what I wanted to do here, ordered list. There might be some. So one of the one of these assignments here. So one thing you also want to kind of keep in mind here. There's these types, and it'll list the items will be numbered with numbers, or you can list them by letter, like here, right? So you can do that. So here you put a type in 1. So this is going to list it by your number. This will list it by letters, uppercase, right? So let's try that one. A, B, C, coffee, tea, milk. Okay? And that's by adding a type. All right. Sorry, got confused where I was there for a little bit. Then also here, an ordered list of your friends, right? So that's an ordered one. So it could be 1, 2, 3, or you can use that one A, B, C, or whatever. 1, 2, 3 is probably better for something like that. By default, it'll be an ordered list. By default, it'll be 1, 2, 3, right? If you don't put a type in there at all, right? So that's by default. Okay, on the contact page, do a mail to. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oops, sorry. Kind of loud probably. A line break. So, and then we'll also a line break, put an image of yourself. Okay, a line break, and then put an image of yourself. Okay, let's see. So here is this, and this is a mail to tag. All right, so you can use that as a reference for that. And then what was the, this is just a break tag just to show you how a break works, right? So here you've got a paragraph tag. You have some breaks within your paragraph tag. And it's just going to put it on the next line breaks, right? Like that. So that'll take care of your line break there. And then we're going to validate then we want to validate the HTML that you created. So let's go ahead and go there. So what we can do here, let me get the, I want to grab one of my documents here. Let me get to the right place on that. So I don't really have much. I just had that one basic one. which was that index one. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and by file upload, choose file. I'm going to do this. And the only one I actually ended up doing anything on was index. Then I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to do a check on this. Document check, no errors or warnings to show. Okay. Just for the heck of it, let's do this again though. And let's do it with an error in there. Let's just kind of move something around like I did before to show you that example. So, you know, telling you must include a head, right? And then obviously it's going to complain about that. We know that. So let's just go ahead and now we know that it's not good. We're going to choose a file again. Even has a little red there. Open it. And let's check that one. Boom. So here it's telling you got a problem, right? I did want to go. It's happy again. Yeah. Just make sure when you, make sure when you do a screenshot, because you need to do a screenshot of this. You know, I hope most of you probably have like snipping tool or whatever. Create a screenshot. I use snipping tool. So, you know, make sure you include, I don't know what happened there. Let me click new here. Make sure you include the document checking completed, no errors or warnings, right? And then save that, save that into your directory and make sure you commit that to GitHub as well, okay, in your directory. So that's that. Okay, so that was the homework assignment. That was the first one. The other one that's due, besides the written, besides the written test, right, is the lab, chapter 2 lab. And so here it's inside your Git repository. Your lab.2, and we can kind of do the same thing we did before, right? So here I'm just going to close my Visual Source Code, and then we're going to go to our directory structure. I'm going to go up higher, go to labs. We're going to go to chapter 2. So we're going to right click on this and go ahead and show more options. And then we're going to open this with code. Now, obviously, maybe for some reason, I don't know how yours is set up. And if you have some problems, maybe, another way is obviously you can just go ahead and file open folder from in here as well. Okay. So that is another option. I don't know what this is doing here, but that's okay. Oh, that's because it's looking for that other directory. So that's that. And so you're pretty much the same thing. Like I said, the important thing is make sure that you're putting things in your local repository, right? That's the clone version of your online GitHub repository is your local one. And you want to make sure that's the one you update so that when you make those updates, it's easy for you to use GitHub Desktop to commit that code. Okay. So in here, I actually earlier this morning, I kind of updated a little bit of this because I think some things, it's still not the best, but I thought some things were hard to kind of understand. So you're going to create an about me page, about me.html page, right? And then basically you're going to write HTML display, the name, largest heading. So the largest one, right? We knew H1 through H6, which one's the largest one? We kind of mentioned that multiple times. Now, obviously, you can go ahead and use your W3 schools or your MDN, for reference, right? Write the HTML to create a link. A link is an A tag, right? How do you do that? And here, so you're what you're going to do is you're going to create that link, and then you're going to go find the URL to the Rankins website, right? You want the URL to Rankins main page, right? And then just go ahead and you cut and paste that in there, and that'll be a link to your school's website. Write an HTML for an unordered list, right? We looked at both unordered and ordered in W3 schools, right? Take a look at that, and to display the days of the week. So you're gonna create unordered list days of the week. Write the HTML for an ordered list that uses an uppercase letter. So there, what we kind of wanted to do, we kind of looked at that, right? Those different types, right? For an ordered list, you can do it by number or by letter, right? And so we looked at that in W3 school. So go out there and look at that again. Actually, where was that? So right here, uppercase letters. This is how you do that, right? Lowercase letters. Okay. So take a look at them and try them out a little bit and test it before you use it on yours. You can actually even change the names of these things, right? So you can always change the name of this thing to be exactly like you want to put in the code to submit. And then once you get it to work, you can cut and paste it and put it in yours. Whatever's best for you. It's kind of really best to get to a habit using the Visual Studio Code, but it's a good way to start. It's a way to get going on things, right? Write the HTML for ordered lists. Yep. And for a quote, what do you use for a quote? Use this block quote. So look at that tag within within W3 schools. Modify the following code snippet to indicate that the term sitemap has a strong importance. Okay, a strong importance. So, and so you got sitemap in here a couple times. Sitemap. So how do you do that? Let's see. Let's go back to our different element. Let's go back to our different ones here. I'm just trying to. I'd like to find a list here. I think I've lost here. I know that here. I don't know why I'm confused on this one. Okay, yeah, I was confused with a different tag. So basically, you're strong, right? So the strong tag's right here. That's another one you can use. Strong. So you want to wrap your sitemaps in strong, right? Modify the block quote you created, number 5. Add a URL to the external hyperlink about the person you admire. Okay. So that was all about, so this was all in the about me.html. So if we go down here at the bottom of this assignment, here's your about me. Notice the title, about me. So make sure you have the title correctly, about me. And the other one, we'll talk about the other ones, same thing. Network protocols, make sure you have the title correct. So here's kind of instructor. This is an example of, previous instructor, Rankin Technical College. Here's his ordered list. Here's his, unordered list. Here's the ordered list. And then the sitemap where, wrap the sitemap in strong. And also here's the block quote, block quote. Person he admires right there, right? So that was for that. All the way through there, all the way through 7. And the eighth one is, create a new web page. So you're going to create a second HTML page called Network Protocols HTML that use a description list to display 3 network protocols. Let's go and look at the thing down here. Okay. And their descriptions. See chapter 1 for that. To list and to display. It uses a description list. Okay. Yeah. What's a description list? I'm not going to tell you that one. Why don't you go, you research that a little bit. What's a what a description list is. HTML description list to display 3 net protocols and their descriptions. Include and hyperlink to the website that provides information about protocols. Add, it has it right here, your description list. So W3 schools. Add appropriate heading for each page. Okay. So you are going to do a little bit of research. You're going to go find, a definition of HTTP, right? You're going to find that, and then you're going to go ahead and put the links in that all in there. Okay. I don't want to say there's not necessarily a right or wrong way. Just, make sure you're using the description list, right? And then, do a little research, find something, put it together. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then here's a couple other pages you want to create. As a favorite music group HTML document. Okay. It's kind of almost dated, though, CDs, right? People don't really buy CDs anymore, but yeah, it's okay. Group CD releases. Each CD use an unordered list to organize names. Use a descriptive list, so you're using that again. So yeah, you got to watch all those. Description list, unordered list. Hyperlink. All right. And then a favorite recipe so another separate page, favorite recipe.html. Use an unordered list. Hyperlink. All right. So, please let me know if, this is a little too overwhelming, for anybody. I'll guide you through it. I'll help you through some of this if you need some help with any of this. Obviously important things, get your GitHub, make sure you can check in and check out code, check in your code, not just check out, make sure you can commit your code, right? And if you have any problems on getting things created, let me know. So what I think we'll go ahead and do with the rest of this is I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and go through that chapter 2 written test so you guys can have that as well. So for the people who are on live, you can go ahead and pull up that in the browser. So I want to go back out to inside ranking again. And obviously, if I don't know where things are going to be in your list necessarily, but you can always go down here and click on the written test. We'll go ahead and start that one. Okay. Let me So a valid HTML document requires a head element and an HTML element within a body element. Well, we know that we already kind of went through this a little bit, right? Obviously, because I kind of was moving a head element, so that's incorrect, right? A head element and a body element within an HTML doc element. That one sounds really good. A head element and an HTML element within a doc type declaration. The doc type declaration isn't really, it's not it doesn't enclose other things. It's just a top level declaration and that's it. So you don't actually have those enclosed within the doc type declaration. That's not true. A head element and a body element within a doc, same thing there. They're not enclosed within there. So the best answer here is a head element and a body element within an HTML element. So next one, which of the following is an ending tag for the H1 element? So always need to know that you always have the forward slash right after the bracket, right? So that's the first one here. What kind of tag is this? Okay. What kind of tag is this? An opening tag, a closing tag, a complete tag, or an empty tag? This is one of those ones that are, there's only so many of these. This is called an empty tag. You don't have to put, there's not enclosing. Usually an empty tag don't have enclosing content, right? You just define an image, you put an alt tag, there's a couple other things. You can put a title as well, but, basically you don't have content. So this is considered an empty tag. Okay. The code that follows, okay, has two parameters and an empty tag. Okay. So no, they're not parameters. These are ID, class are called attributes. So we can get rid of the parameters. So it's either has two parameters and an empty tag, right? And so this is not an empty tag because P has a closing tag, right? P's not one of those. This kind of has content, right? So this is going to be the last one. It has two attributes in an opening tag. This is the opening tag. Number 5. In HTML, you can code a Boolean attribute as so if you remember, we looked at that checkbox. Remember, hopefully you were paying attention. And we had that input type checkbox. And for that, you type is actually, type checkbox is types an attribute. But for that Boolean thing, that thing was just checked, right? It was just, it didn't have a attribute, then equal sign, and it just says check by itself. So that's just the attribute name, right? It's just the name checked, right? That's it. It doesn't have an equal sign or anything like that, right? In HTML, you must enclose an attribute value within quotation marks. You must attribute in quotation marks, yeah. Just by best practice, I would always include anything attribute in quotation marks. But if it contains one or more spaces, then it must be within quotation marks. Okay. Let's see. When you comma a portion of HTML code, okay, that's where you do the empty bracket, exclamation point, right? Now, ones like this is the third and fourth one in the list. This is what we used in C#, right? This is what you use in JavaScript and Java code, different programming languages. But for HTML, you always use the open bracket, exclamation point, and the two dashes, right? And you have to make sure that you end that as well. You can use line return tabs and spaces to align your HTML. You can use line returns and spaces to align your HTML, yeah. And that's as long as they're preceded by no, because comments are ignored. Because white space is ignored by the browsers. Yep. The browser don't care about white space in your code. All right. Number 9. Within CSS, styles rule, a declaration consists of a property selector, a property. So yeah, a declaration. The declaration. Do we need to take a look at that again? It'd be helpful. So the declaration is this part, right? The declaration of this part has nothing to do because we talked about the selector, right? We talked about the types. You can have a type, then you can have an ID, or you can have a class. Classes always starts with a period, a dot. An ID always starts with a hash or a pound sign, right? And then obviously your types are always HTML elements, right? But when we're talking about the declaration, we're talking about that part, right? And I think that says that up here some one point right there. So here's your declaration, color, right? So what are you doing? You know, property value, right? There it is, property and value. So that's the correct answer on that. 3 of the common CSS selectors are so we just kind of looked at this. We have an element type, right? HTML element type, an ID attribute, and a class attribute. Which of the following is a CSS type selector? So this one is a type. This is an HTML type. All right. The one that's a pound, pounds for what? An ID, a dot or a period is for a class, right? And this is something colons. We'll talk about that later. That's part of CSS. It can be used within CSS, and we'll talk about that at a later point in time. Which of the following is a CSS class selector? Right? Class selector. Always starts with a dot or period. Right? When you use a text editor to start a new HTML file from an old file, I don't really like this question. But when you use a text editor to start a new HTML file from an old one, open the old file, add code it. No, that doesn't make sense. You open the old file, save it with a new name, and then add code to it. Create a new file, then cut, and then paste the code. When you use an editor to start a new HTML file, open the old file, save it. Yeah, so if you save it with a new name, yeah, you don't have to cut and paste it. So the answer here is that, but I think that's kind of just a silly question, to be honest with you. Most of the time, I don't see why you would do that, but, I guess it's possible. 14. If you're using Visual Source Code to edit an HTML file, the easiest way to run it is to... So you recall within Visual Studio, 2 ways. Don't have the document here right now. Let's just open the folder. Let's see if we can get there quickly. Homework. That was this one. Did I delete it? Am I in the wrong place? What the heck? Did I not save that stuff? I might not have saved it. No, it had to be saved. I don't know what I did there. Oh, let's just open folder. Duh. I'm just being silly. So in here, I was looking for the files to be there. I said the files ain't there, but I was opening the folder, right? So in here, there's basically 2 ways to go ahead and open with Live Server. You can right-click just within the window, open with Live Server. The other is down at the bottom of your screen. There's a Go Live, right? Remember, 2 ways. So click the go live icon at the bottom of the screen. It's not including the right click here, right? Right click on the file menu and select run, no. But they're not even referring, within even I think the PowerPoint presentation didn't even mention that stuff as well. They're not mentioning that as well. So it's only this is from their perspective here. This is the only way to do that. Click the go live. Let's see, 15. When using live preview, the changes are shown in the default browser as soon as you save the changes to the HTML or CSS. Yeah, it's not going to update, until you save it, but it will update, and we probably really didn't look how that updates like that, did we? So obviously that's not going to update, but I'm going to hit Control S to save. Control S to save the document here, and then it'll update that without you having to. You don't have to keep opening server every time, right? Right click open server or anything. Once you have it there, and you're fine, right? All right. Almost lost my page. Too much stuff open. Okay. So we did that one. 16. Suppose you load a web page into Chrome and they use a text editor to change the HTML for the page. Then to rerun the page from Chrome, you can. Okay. Yeah. So this is basically stating this. Might as well just show you this. Might be common sense, but so let's go here, and then now let me double click on that. Let me double click on that. So this is going to the page right there. So if I go in here and just common sense, I know, probably for the most part here. If I do this and I save it, it's not going to reflect until I hit refresh, right? So this is number 16. Click the reload button in the toolbar. Okay. So that's it. Let's see how we did. Submit this written test. We'll turn in. So just to let you know, if you don't turn it in, right, it's automatically going to grade it when time runs out. When it's due Sunday at midnight. So there we go. So there's if you follow this video, or people who are on live followed everything, and you get all your points here, right? So that's about all I have for today. Please let me know if anybody has any problems with getting your environment set up. Any of the coding at all, getting your environment set up, being able to commit your code, and you just make sure that every week, especially got some new students, you have to submit something to be marked as present for the week. So don't forget that. In addition, like I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture today, the books, I have books. I have an online version for everyone. I hope that's going to be okay. I know some people kind of would have rather had the hard copies, um, but you know there's some a lot of advantages, and actually it'll help you too with these written tests because you can search the book and everything else. There's some other functionality within the readers, um, that you can also highlight stuff and and do other things as well. So I will get I will send separate emails for that, and I'll also just do a quick video on how to use the uh, editor that's part of that. You'll have to go and actually create an account and then submit the code for you to use the book, right? To view the book. But I'll send you everybody information on that. You already got the chapters, the other versions that I sent, so we should be good there. So if anybody needs any help with anything, please don't hesitate to contact me.